So everyone, my name is Nate Kells from the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, and we have Mackenzie Knight-Fochs from the Laurel Cemetery, and Richard Duran. The three of us are out on your screen today. Thank you for joining us for our first Marketing Communications Community Virtual Town Hall. We had a discussion. We just felt like we needed to connect and see what people have been doing, see what the plans are for the future. I think we're all in some extremely uncertain times, and so whatever we can do to help each other out, that's kind of what we're looking for this town hall.
All right. So what we're going to do is, because there are so many people on, we do want this to be an open town hall, so we want you to share. Mackenzie, Richard, and I will check the chat Q&A section also. If you have something to share, let us know, and then we'll unmute you on this end. So currently, the questions we have for discussion are, how have you been communicating to date? Creation of an impact plan, the internal and external communications you've used. By now, hopefully you've received some feedback from those communications, and then how are you continuing to interact? So even from that first section, does anyone have any information they wanted to share as far as how you have been communicating to date? It's been, let's see, the University of Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, we were asked to close on February 13th, or I'm sorry, March 13th. So we've been closed for quite a bit. Initially, a lot of our different departments were doing individual communications. We have an education department. There are quite a few other departments that wanted to send out their own form of communication, and they did. So we then had to come together and create a communication impact plan and just determine who's going to be communicating when. It kind of came up in a meeting that my dentist sent me 4 messages and it's just for a cleaning. And I thought, okay, well, I don't need 4 messages from my dentist. So taking all of those communications into consideration, I don't know if Mackenzie, if you want to share some of the things your garden did, putting it into a weekly e-blast, and it also ramped up our internal communications. So I'm going to check the chat and the Q&A.
Yeah, and thanks, Nate. I hope everyone can hear me. Hello, I hope everyone is doing well. With Laurel Hill and West Laurel Hill Cemeteries, and of which I work for the Friends, but we're an arboretum, we are still, our gates are still open to the public, and we're still continuing funeral operations in various extents, but it's been interesting because people are definitely using it as an open space. But we're trying to keep an eye on people who are coming to make sure they're keeping that 6 feet of distance between the people that are not part of their party. And then in terms of communicating, we've been utilizing our website a lot and sending out occasional emails, but nothing too heavy to our constituents, just trying to be aware, as kind of Nate alluded to, in terms of overloading people with information. And internally, our president and CEO has been sending a weekly email on Friday afternoons with an update of where we are with things. And then we've been having a lot of meetings, as I'm sure everybody else has too. So anybody else want to raise their hand or have any specific questions in terms of how things have been rolling out? I see there's somebody here from Longwood, and I know you guys closed up pretty early on. So if Abby, you'd like to share anything about that, I think maybe the group would be interested.
I think Richard might have to unmute.
Abby, you should be good.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for putting me on the spot, Mackenzie.
Abby, you know us by now.
Well, I have to say I am very happy to get to see your faces and see that everyone's doing well, which is great. Yeah, so for Longwood, actually today we just launched Our Gardens, Your Home online resource center for members and for our guests who are missing us and we are missing them dearly. So we started an online resource where we are pointing people to be able to engage with us from home. So we have different sections, and in each section are different buckets of different resources that you can discover. So for instance, we have a listen and explore feature where you can go in and listen to some of your favorite past concerts. You can listen to some podcasts, you can read some past blogs, and you know, we are planning on updating this with content weekly. So we thought that was our the best way for us to connect to our members and our fans and followers, because we miss them and they miss us, and it's a great way to stay connected. And in terms of internal communications, our senior staff has done a great job of being in contact with us weekly about what's going on. And, you know, I know in these trying times, it is so important for employees to hear directly from their supervisors and their CEOs, because, you know, that's the most trustworthy source of information that they're getting. So, you know, I think that's definitely important, you know, keeping that internal communications open and just finding ways to interact with your fans online. So definitely go to our website and check it out. And if anyone has any questions or, you know, needs some ideas, we're always happy to share.
Thank you, Abby. I appreciated that. I think we have Richard from Idaho Botanical Garden up next. You had a question?
Well, I did raise my hand, yes.
Yeah.
I was just curious, as you guys were sharing, what sort, can you share some examples of the public's response? How did your members respond? How did your supporters respond? How did the general public respond?
Well, for us, it's a little bit different because we are part of the University of Minnesota. So when the president of the university said to close before the governor put the shelter in place in action, we had a lot of feedback. Members were upset. We have 29,000 member households. So my team was fairly well busy on the phones answering questions. It was a delicate balance between saying we didn't have an option because of the university, but then also being part of the university, we didn't want to throw them under the bus. So we quickly came up with, we've been using Google Docs like no tomorrow. We quickly came up with FAQs, and when messages would come in that we didn't really know how to answer, or they would take a little bit more, you know, thought put into it before we would want to respond, we put together the Google Doc and had all of those FAQs in there and shared it with the entire Arboretum, because you don't know if, you know, even a neighbor could ask a question of someone that's not usually on the front lines. And we just wanted to have everyone aware of the situation, have that, you know, those touch points to let them know, okay, this is what's going on. Also explaining that it's a delicate situation, so don't just say that the university made us close. There's good reason for it. I think part of it was because they had us closed before the governor. That really slowed down once the Minnesota governor said we had the shelter in place. So now it's looking like we're going to be closed at least through the end of April. And our director has been working with the university president to see if there's anything that can be done. Maybe members could do a drive, the 3-mile drive. We have a drive that goes through the Arboretum, but then trying to figure out, well, is it safe? Is it, you know, we would have to have staff out there to make sure they didn't get out of their cars. Are people going to actually stay in their cars? So I think that's pretty much how it affected us. And it's really, we've seen some refunds, we've seen some, you know, people asking for extensions. We haven't been, our accounting crew is really pushing for us not to do a blanket extension just because of the financial impact of that. But I think if it goes out much further, we'll have to do that. But we're also finding, and we're sharing stories with the staff about people that really do love us, and they're wanting us to reopen, and they're excited for, March is kind of a different time for us because it's not very busy. So now that April's hitting, we have 40,000 tulips that are ready to bloom, and closer to May, so they're really getting antsy. I think it'll come in waves again. Like we'll hear, well, why can't we get in to see the tulips? And we have some ground staff on site, and we're trying to figure out if they would be able to set up a, like a webcam or something, but I don't know.
And see, Elizabeth Faithman has a question about the content. Is it original? Like, do we produce our own podcasts? And we can get her unmuted. There you are.
Hi. Yeah, so that was my question for Abby is, do you produce your own original content for your Listen and Explore? And then after that, I want to kind of share a little bit about what we're doing at Missouri Botanical Garden.
Great question. So currently, to get this launched, we really are utilizing a lot of the pre-existing content. So right now we are linking to podcasts that we have contributed to in the past, but we are in the process of creating new content. We are in the process of creating a few videos. We are in the process of converting some of our continuing education resources to online to kind of be able to source a larger, wider audience. And especially for school and youth, we know there's a great need for teachers, educators, and parents at home to educate their kids right now. So we are converting a lot of our in-garden, on-site learning activities to be formatted for home use.
Thank you, that's great. We are doing sort of a similar thing. I've formed a group about 3 weeks ago that we're calling Virtual MBG, and it's got representatives from all of the public-facing or visitor engagement departments around the garden, and we meet weekly to talk about what content people are creating, what channels that content is getting delivered on, and under what schedule. So this past week we started thinking about it in terms of who our audiences are, because what our members are interested in knowing may not be exactly what the public is interested in knowing, or may not be the same messaging. Members and visitors with families are looking for that kind of stuff that you just described, Abby, online course content or learning experiences. So we're trying to produce some of that. But for now, our most popular content has been video tours and drone flyovers and what we're calling moments of Zen, where we just set up a camera, a live stream on Facebook for like an hour in a really peaceful part of our garden, and let people just sort of stream that. And then we're putting all of the streamed videos onto YouTube, because a lot of our members are not on Facebook and they still want to access that content. So we're trying to save it on YouTube too, which is a lot more accessible to a lot of people. So we're really lucky. I'm really lucky that I have a couple of videographers and a drone operator on my staff. So we've been able to get a lot of good content that way. Going forward, we're thinking of doing virtual hikes or trail runs at our nature reserve. So somebody with a GoPro or something will take a hike or take a run, and then we'll make that available for people who may be exercising at home on a treadmill, or a bike or something like that. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to produce to keep people engaged and to keep them thinking about the garden at a time when they actually can't enjoy it in person.
Elizabeth, how are you promoting that content, or how are you sending it out? Is it mainly through your social media channels and email? And how often do you do that?
So we're posting the live tours and videos at least 3 or 4 times a week, and we're sending out weekly email to the members, and we're linking the video content in those emails. We're about to start a weekly email or e-blast to our volunteer corps. We have a pretty significant volunteer corps, and so we want to be able to share content with them. But really it's social media and e-blasts, and then occasionally our local media will sort of poke around and find out what people are doing, and we'll get some coverage you know, on local television and print media, but mostly it's just through those channels.
Perfect. We had a kind of a mass mailing going out right before everything got shut down. So marketing kind of pulled it back and added some COVID, you know, just like a paragraph at the top. And then, so that got out to our members. We're just having some issues getting to the members that don't have email, or they don't have, you know, access to the internet, or they're just not. So I was wondering if there's any other creative ways people are seeing. I know that we haven't stopped any advertising yet. I know we're in some of the magazines and newspapers, and they're kind of running as is, I think, for right now, since they were booked a long time ago. But
so
I
Nate,
guess if anyone has,
sorry, one of the things we did, because we have a lot of members who are in that demographic, and we're publishing our member newsletter, the bulletin, online only this cycle and for the summer. So we sent out a little postcard, and we asked all of the members that we didn't have emails for to please, you know, to let them know that the next issue of Bulletin is going to be online only, and in order to get that, we're going to need your email address. And we've had a really good response rate to that. You know, not 100%, but a lot. And it's just a simple little postcard. You know, and not the kind of, we need your email address, but if you want to continue to get our content, we need a way of getting it to you.
Yeah. That's great. I know that our director has been doing virtual tours for, I don't know if it's posted on Facebook yet, but I know for like our donors and benefactors, people that have already kind of mentioned, you know, we're going to do what we can to help you through this and figure it out. And so he's been doing some special things like that. Our PR person, Susie Hopper, she's a media contact, so she has essential employee status, so she can go on site. But because it's university, we can't, it's very particular about who can actually go on the ground and who can't. So I think the idea of having a virtual run would be amazing. That'd be something that people could really get, especially with Peloton and everything now, people could really get into that.
Right. Yeah, we actually, I had to get my 2 staff members essential status so that they could go out and create these videos. And, you know, the senior leadership team is hearing from constituents that people are loving it. So I think it paid off to kind of make the case that even though people think of marketing and communications as, you know, maybe not the most essential department, that in order to keep people engaged and interested in what you're doing, you need to keep providing them with a reason to love you. And you know, that comes from good content.
So this will go out to everyone on the call. Did anyone have to create? Well, we called it our virus impact plan. So did anyone have to create anything like that? I'm trying to figure out too, Richard, is there a place where people could share those? Just to see, I mean, we had to create one for the university. And so It'd be nice to use those I would like to have people be able to submit and have them as a resource if there's still some unknowns or things that, you know, if you're kind of a one-man band at this point. I know we've had to do some cutting, and the resources aren't necessarily there anymore, but it would be nice if we could share those. I'm not sure, Richard, if you're.
Sure. One of the ways that we can is through the communities. Here, let me see what I can do. So some of you are probably familiar with the online forums, which I think is being shared right now. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Terrific. Just going to scroll down and get to marketing and communications. We do have the libraries. You could certainly just, how did that happen? Okay. You can just do it in the discussion post. There's also the library here where you can create a new library entry. That would allow us to share within the communications and marketing communications community, but not with everybody else. If you do want to share with everyone through our Library and Media Center, I could certainly, when I send out the information about where to see this video, we'll be able to also add in a link to email Tommy Rosenbluth in our office, and he can put those up into our Library Media Center for you. And then we could create a link there. But probably the easiest way is just to create a discussion, and there is an opportunity to add attach a file to it. So down here,
perfect.
Attach file. I have to actually say what this is about, but you get the idea. It's not too difficult.
Yep.
So.
No, that'll be perfect. I think that'll be a great spot to have it kind of all culminated in there. And maybe when things get added, or I can send messages out too. I know you get notifications, but we do have on the chat. So Erica Smith said, in Florida, none of the news crews can go out and are doing Zoom interviews. We have done several interviews this way. You may want to talk about the tools needed to do interviews virtually. We now have equipment ready for this new normal. We have been, I know that our PR person is more comfortable just with her phone. So I know that she's been doing a pretty good job of, I think she has the iPhone, I don't know, it's 11, whatever the newest one is. So the quality looks really good. I don't know, is there any specific equipment that you're thinking, Erica, or just wondering what there would be? I know that we're not allowed to go on the grounds either, so they're doing interviews through Zoom and Google Hangout and whatever they can do. So while I wait for that response.
Okay, I think you can hear me.
Oh, yes, Becky.
Yep.
Okay, so what I was advocating for, and I think some of our biggest challenge, so in Florida, we don't quite have the restrictions that some of the other states. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we are on site in a very limited capacity. But our biggest challenge has been having equipment, having multiple, because now everybody wants to, have their own podcast, and every department wants to develop their own video series and their own this. And so our biggest challenge has been resources. And so I know we placed a Best Buy order and actually got it today for several tripods and for phone mounts and those kind of things. So what my recommendation would be is to have multiple of those if possible, and really marshal your resources and what you're going to need to make all of these things happen. So I know we have been kind of struggling through how do we get microphones for, the live, and how to keep the live stream without falling off. And, there's a lot of things from a technical nature that has been of a challenge. And I feel like every day we solve that problem, and now here's another one, and we solve that problem, and then here's another one. So that's kind of my thought on it.
Perfect. And then I think we have Devin.
Devin and So that he's recording videos at USBG to share with visitors who can't come on site, sharing via social media, which I think a lot of places are doing, which is great. And we do have 2 questions in the Q&A. Justin Lacey has a pretty long question about tracking participation in online programs and classes. Is there interest in that? They're wondering if people will have screen overload. They were just launching pilot educational programming when group activity restrictions were going into effect, essentially. So does anyone have any thoughts on that or successes thus far?
Hello, this is Devin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was going to share that we're seeing overall, even though we're loading more video content and more posts overall than we've ever done, we're seeing higher engagement numbers on almost all of them than average. So even though we seem to be posting a lot more than we typically would, they do across the board all seem to be. So we're not seeing, I think, over posting fatigue, at least not yet. And we are receiving way more engagement as far as visitors leaving comments on the video posts than typical as well. Most of them extremely positive, about how excited they are to see and connect with nature when they're kind of stuck at home. So far they seem to be going really well, even though it makes me nervous how much we're posting.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. And I know from our social media posts with the cemetery, we've been getting a lot of positive feedback as well. So that's great.
How do you, it seems like Facebook is one of the places where a lot of our, even our members are going on to complain about us not being open. Is there anyone that has, we have kind of that canned answer. We're trying to be as honest as possible, but social media, for the most part, I would say 99% is doing extremely well. But is anyone else having issues with social media and situations like that, or is it just Minnesota?
Anyone who has talked can simply unmute themselves and continue to join in if you'd like. I see Lauren Joseph. Lauren, if you want to.
Hey, we're having the opposite problem with social media. It's not bad so far, but in South Carolina, we're still able to be open because our governor says that we are outdoor exercise. So I'm starting to get some people on social media saying, "Why are you open? This is horrible. You need to let your staff go home." And so we're getting the opposite.
Wow.
But I'm just, responding that, we are encouraging people to social distance, and we've closed down all of our internal or our inside galleries and welcome centers, and it's just the outdoor areas open. And we're also asking everyone to buy their tickets online so they don't have to buy a ticket when they get to Brook Green.
And as you've responded to those negative comments, Lauren, have people kind of backed off on that, or what has been the response to your response, I guess?
It's been good because I love it when people chime in on social media and support you, because we've had just a ton of support from our members and from other people who are just saying, thank you so much, Brook Green, for being open. I had one woman say that being able to come and walk is keeping her sane. So many parents having a place to take their kids, because we also have a native wildlife zoo. So they're able to come and walk through the zoo and get them out of the house and let them run. So it's overwhelmingly, people are thankful that we're open. It's just those few that keep coming back and saying that we're horrible. And the bad thing is some of them are members.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, but
I
we're
do
also
like it though when other people come on and then they kind of take care of the situation for you.
Yeah, that's the best.
It's very nice. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. And then Beth Monroe has a question. With the rise of interest in gardening during COVID-19, is anyone having success with pitching related media stories? And I've seen this, and I feel like Penn State is putting out some, I think, a free online like victory gardening course. Are other gardens doing similar? Thoughts, feedback about that? Anyone?
Yep. We're actually doing videos about horticulture, and then we also have a kind of a victory garden in Brook Green. So we're working on a video right now about different ideas to small space garden. And we are crossing our fingers. We're going to try to have our normal spring plant sale, but do it online and have people either drive up to our greenhouse by appointment to pick up their plants, or possibly we deliver to their house.
Nice. That's great. And I've seen that a lot too, about the drive-through picking up of plants. And I see in our chat, Becky Roberts said that she had gotten some good coverage when the Scott Arboretum of Swarthmore College launched their #BranchOut digital learning series, because the media is looking for uplifting stories. Becky, did you want to talk more about that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is Becky Robert from the Scott Arboretum. I don't have too much to add to that. I can echo what everyone here is kind of saying. Initial rollout was more communicating cancellations and limitations. Similar to some of the situations described here, I'm kind of the middle person. The college decides what policies we are, and then I have to translate them to our audience, which can create a bit of a delay, so I get clarification on what they think volunteers mean and what they think visitors mean. We were able to get some pushback to our Coronid committee. Initially, the entire campus was closed. They then changed wording, I think, as some of us who are free and open to the public have done, to say you can come, but the facilities are closed. I will say the hard part about the change in the announcement is I technically was not allowed to announce it. So it was almost like a soft opening. So I did some like picture taking of the new official sign, but I didn't use any wording. I have embedded it in a bunch of other announcements. I think word's out there that you can come, but I wasn't allowed to be like, hey, we're open. And again, as everyone's doing after those initial announcements, we started thinking about what we're doing for digital learning. Today we tried a Facebook Live feed, which was well received. So it sounds like we're all doing the same mix. So thank you for putting this together and kind of getting everybody's tips and tricks.
Thank you, Becky.
This is Devin. I wondered if I might bring up Zoom for a moment.
Sure.
So, and you've probably seen that it's been popping up in the news about Zoom bombing recently, about people glomming on.
Whoops. Where'd he go?
Oh no, I'm
Sorry,
I got
Devin.
You left us hanging at Zoom bombing. Are you
I know, right?
Sorry, Devin, that was my fault. I promoted you to panelist if you wanted to share something, but go ahead.
I gotcha. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so Zoom bombing, is definitely a thing that's happening. So if you're doing any online learning where you're sharing a Zoom link in your programs or on your website or on your social media so that people can join freely, I will tell you, you're absolutely eventually going to get Zoom bombed. There are bots that are rolling the internet looking for Zoom video links. We had our first case of it on Saturday by a contractor. It wasn't us ourselves. We've not been using Zoom for that, but we have a contractor who's moved the yoga that we normally offer in the garden to offering yoga online. And she was using Zoom and she didn't follow good protocols. And that's what I wanted to mention, is that there are protocols that you can lock down your feed. You can literally mute all people before you even start the meeting. And you can also make it so that only your screen or desktop is shared You can promote someone individually to be able to share their stuff, but I would absolutely highly suggest that before you start any Zoom meetings, if you're sharing them outward, that you set up your meeting by default so that it's all muted and all cannot share unless you want to individually promote someone, because it will happen.
That's
And I think
great.
what I'll do is put kind of a Zoom protocol document on, if I can share that, Richard, I think I'll put that on the
Absolutely.
community just so everyone can download it. I've heard of it, but I don't know. I kind of feel like, well, does anyone really want to know what I'm doing? But I think more and more it's happening because now you're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and from what I'm seeing, it's not even individual people as much as they've got bots set up now. It seems like they can just kind of find them, and then it sort of grabs the link and jumps in, and they've got it. So right, they've kind of automated some of it. So it does seem to be happening at a higher rate than it was before.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I see Katie Teed also has some new rules from her university, as the university there at UBC, I think. So I think sharing those protocols would be really great. And then there's a question from Philip Smith that at the West Virginia Botanic Garden, they're open and experiencing record crowds, but also seeing almost no donations in their on-site donation boxes. They don't charge admission, and they know a lot of people are unemployed, their 401ks are getting gutted, et cetera, but how do they best market for donations? And I know that as cemeteries, we do have a donation box, not super prominent, but we haven't gotten tons of, it's not like those donations have increased exponentially or anything like that. So does anybody have any recommendations for, how are you soliciting support at this time? And maybe, Philip, if you can talk about maybe the discussions you've had with other staff or maybe board, or what you're noticing that people are they're just using it as an open space.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those challenges. I was hoping maybe somebody else had some good marketing experience on that. We've just been talking about how to develop relationships with all the crowds that are coming in a safe way and sort of foster that, but trying to figure out, at what point do we throw in the hook of, if you enjoy this experience and you enjoy this place, how can we, with the best couth, like make those sort of asks without seeming insensitive.
Do you have any permanent or temporary signage that you'd be able to utilize for kind of putting that out there of like, thanks for staying safe with us. We can keep our gates open with your support, and then something soft like that. I know the Woodlands Cemetery in Philadelphia is also open, and they had some just chalkboard signs to remind people to social distance, like 6 feet above ground is greater than 6 feet below ground. Like they were kind of being catchy in that way. So perhaps like something like that, people recognize that they're benefiting from your being open. I don't know if that's a thing that you guys could utilize, but.
Sure.
And is it something that you could have on the way out? Because I think once they get in and they have a great experience, they really enjoyed what they did, then we try to capture them on their way out. So, I mean, maybe that's something, I don't know exactly what, where the signage or whatever could go, but I think the verbiage that Mackenzie uses is perfect. And I think that, for some people, for us, because we're part of the university, they don't think we're a nonprofit. So if that's something that if people in your area don't know that, maybe even touting that, like as a nonprofit, we appreciate your support. That's actually how we're extending or not extending a lot of our membership, because people know that we're nonprofit now. So. But does anyone else have anything to share as far as what your messaging is for continued donations and how that's going. We were told by our development department that they are moving forward. They are doing what they can to increase their, to make their goal. I know membership, we're doing the same, sending everything out just as is. So I don't know.
I did see Nancy Benjamin said that their board is contacting their most loyal donors to thank them, check in, let them know that what they're up to and being honest about funding needs. I know that our membership coordinator at the cemetery is making phone calls to donors, as well as our president and CEO. And then Katie Teed shared in our chat that suggesting an easy way to donate online because people and businesses are discouraging the use of cash because of the fear of spreading the disease, which I guess is valid as well, because who knows? We always talk about how dirty money is, so.
Right. And I think if you don't spread that message now, it's gonna get more and more difficult to increase donations as this prolongs. I think people's uncertainty about jobs and financial, I think that's all gonna, if it hasn't already, will continue to decrease. So I think putting signs up right away is better than waiting any amount of time, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of looking, we're in our last minutes of this. So is anyone, they kind of looking at some of the other questions that we had about setting ourselves apart in the media amidst the clutter, and how you might be continuing to increase that virtual interactiveness. Anything else that people have burning questions about? And also, how should we do this again? Should we do this another week or every week or not? I'm not sure if everyone is getting zoomed out themselves. Oh, but we want to be useful to you all. So thank you for coming, but also how can we help you?
Well, and I think too, if we do end up doing this again, now that we have one, kind of under our belt, we can have more direct ideas of what would like to be communicated too. So if there's something that you want to go in more in depth on, then maybe that just becomes the topic of that. And maybe they're 15 minutes, maybe they're a half hour. But if you have any ideas on how to do this better, or just let us know, because we're all in the same boat, so. Let's see. Was there anything else I haven't, Mackenzie, did you go through the Q&A?
I'm looking at the Q&A. Richard said that it's a good exercise. With more time, we'll see more impact in tactics. Abby said it was great, thanks. And Becky Robert from Scott Arboretum said maybe a focus on various tools like how to digital class, how to do live tours, record tours, best social media techniques right now. So I'm looking to see. Perhaps we can go forward and look through our chat, everyone, and pull out some of those ideas. Emily Ramsey said that her garden is using their garden kitty to draw people in through Facebook videos.
Everyone go out and get a garden kitty.
That's great. Ooh, sorry, everyone.
Oh, you're fine. That's the fun part. We're all working from home. Kids walk in, dogs walk in, everyone walks in. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great ideas in the chat. I think, and I'm not sure if there's a way, I don't know, every garden is so specific. It would be nice that if someone had a resource and could share something and another garden could use it. I think if we could work together to figure that out, I don't know if that's more of an education piece, or I know images are very specific to the garden, but if there was a way that people, or if there's anything you can think of that we can all share with each other, plans, or like I said, we don't know what resources people have. If you have a press release that you would be willing to share and someone could use it and tweak it, I think the more we share right now, the better. So. Oh, Justin wrote the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma. Yeah, I've watched that. That's hilarious. His tweets are hilarious. And if anyone does go viral, let us know. I mean, that's great.
Erica Smith said that they did a concert for the Koi with K's, which is great. And Erin McKeon from Chanticleer said that for on-site donations, she recently learned about Dip Jar. They haven't used it yet, but they're considering ways of managing touch-free check-in when they can open, which I hadn't gotten that far in thinking, but you know, eventually when gardens can open back up, how do you manage that? Besides encouraging maybe online ticket sales, that would be great. So.
Well, I think that the current situation is going to change how we do business for quite a long time. So
yeah,
any of those types of things, I think overwhelmingly it seems like people do want to do this again. So that might be something that we consider and maybe do a little bit more investigation into plans as to how people will be changing how they do their business. So.
All right.
But is there any other questions, or does anyone else want to share before we wrap up?
Yep.
All you gotta do is raise your hand.
Yeah. And we'll post kind of an outline of some of these resources that were shared, and then this recording will be posted as well. So if you, for people that were not on the call, they can have that, and you guys can reference it. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Richard and Mackenzie. Good to see you guys.
Yes.
Good to see everyone. Thanks
Nice
for
to hear from
participating
everyone.
all.
Thank you, everyone.
Be safe. Stay healthy, everyone.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Stay healthy and stay safe.